Vice President Yemi Osinbajo in the USA showcases Nigeria's progress and strides in technology and innovation.
And good morning, Nigeria. Today we take the second part of our focus on the safe haulage of petroleum products in Nigeria.
Remember the saying, a stitch in time saves nine? Well, it's a common saying that resonates with everyday experience and more so with circumstances that could have been prevented.
Absolutely, Sheo. Now, those words remind us of the need to be proactive rather than reactive. And then, question to ask is, could the recent petroleum tanker explosion on the Tojola Bridge in Lagos have been prevented if, for instance, the regulatory authorities had been proactive?
Yeah, in 2012, the Federal Road Safety Corps reported involvement of over 5,000 petroleum product tankers in daily haulage on Nigerian roads, accounting for approximately 95% of the country's petroleum products transport volume moving on the road.
Now, according to the Federal Road Safety Corps, in the first half of this year alone, that's 2018, the country has lost over 7 billion naira to road traffic accidents involving over 100 petroleum product tankers. Now, the figure excludes the number of persons killed, the cost of treatment of those injured, damage to the country's road infrastructure, environmental impact, and other collateral damages.
And so the FRSC says the June 28 petroleum tanker accident at the Otedola Bridge in Lagos is the worst in terms of the number of vehicles involved, as it left 12 persons dead and 55 vehicles burned.
And on Friday last week, we had the first part of this conversation on how to prevent a reoccurrence of these accidents involving petrol hauling tankers. And all our guests profiled solutions, but pointed to the fact that a better solution could be found in a stakeholders meeting to, of course, find ways of dealing with these incessant road crashes involving tankers in the country. Now, that stakeholders meeting took place on Monday this week. That's just 2 days ago.
Well, Kingsley, as that another saying goes, it's better late than never. The meeting of the stakeholders of the road transport subsector was convened by the Office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, SGF, including members of the National Assembly, the police, FERMA, the FRSC, and this is all to deliberate on a possible line of action to address the menace of haulage of petroleum products in Nigeria.
Now, among its many resolutions, the meeting also indicated that henceforth there will be mandatory certification of all haulage vehicles, and this will be carried out twice in every 12 calendar months. And that's, of course, part of the measures include the stoppage of importation of haulage vehicles exceeding 10 years from the date of manufacture, and this will effect from the 1st of January 2020.
And it's further resolved, and equally importantly, that standard speed limiters should be installed on all haulage vehicles in Nigeria, while trailers without safety valves and the required number plates would henceforth be disallowed from loading. That is the essence of the second part of our discourse for this morning. Thanks for joining us on this midweek edition of Good Morning Nigeria, reaching you live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority, the NTA. I am Sheung Olagunju.
And I'm Kingsley Osanolo. I also welcome you to the program, in the course of which we shall have regular companion segments, and these include newspaper review, business, sports, foreign, and others. In the meantime, let's take the highlights of the morning news with our colleague, Ogwa Vivian Oyedibia. Hi, Ogwa. Good morning.
Hello, Kingsley and Sheung. Good morning and welcome to the morning news. President Muhammadu Buhari has strongly advised the people of Ekiti State not to be deceived by the so-called stomach infrastructure, but work assiduously and conscientiously towards reclaiming their land and restoring their values for sustainable future. The president said the only viable alternative for now is the return of Kayode Fayemi of the governing APC to power on the 14th of July. The president was speaking in Ado-Ekiti at the grand finale of the APC campaign rally for the forthcoming governorship election in Ekiti State.
The current administrations in Ekiti State and the federal government belong to opposing political parties we have always ensured the state got her fair share in the allocation of resources, the siting of federal projects, and the selection of beneficiaries of federal government programs. We will never play politics with the welfare of the people of Ekiti or any other state, regardless of the partisan affiliation of the government of the day. I therefore call on Ekiti people, don't allow yourself to be insulted by stomach infrastructure. Your future and the future of the upcoming generations are in your own hands today. Vote for APC and grow beyond stomach infrastructure. The time has come to correct historical injustice and to restore Ekiti State to the path of peace and prosperity.
And President Muhammadu Buhari says the governing APC will not do anything to undermine the credibility of the electoral process during the forthcoming governorship election in Ekiti State, saying the people's vote will count. The president stated this while visiting the palace of the Awi of Ekiti State and made a strong case for the election of APC candidate Dr. Kayode Fayemi.
Through you, to the whole constituency Ekiti State, to please elect Dr. Fayemi, young, hard-working, intellectual, and great personal pursuit.
And the All Progressives Congress, APC, says the party remains united under the leadership of President Muhammadu Buhari, and the so-called RAPC is not a faction of the party. In a statement, the National Publicity Secretary of the APC says the party respects the right of anyone to join any association or group, and that the party is ready to address any grievances of genuine members. He urged aggrieved members to take advantage of the opportunity while the windows for reconciliation are still open. Meanwhile, the national chairman of the PDP, Uche Secondus, says the party has grounds to be victorious in the forthcoming governorship election in Ekiti State. He made the remark at a mega rally of the party held in Ado Ekiti.
I want to assure our leaders, the leaders of this great party, and the entire people of Ekiti State, that by the grace of Almighty God, we are going to change the face of Ekiti. I want you to be assured of adequate security.
And still talking politics, barely 24 hours after the main opposition party PDP led 39 others to announce the formation of an alliance referred to as a coalition of united political parties, 20 parties have distanced themselves from the said alliance.
We are not part of that coalition because we represent a particular type of politics, which is in total contradistinction from the type of politics that is played in that coalition. We do not believe that our country should be governed by people whose only objective is to capture power.
We want Nigerians to note that our coalition is for Nigerian, is for us to advance the cause of Nigerian. It's for us to see that we change the course of this country from impoverished nation, which our past leaders have put us. We have seen what they've done to this country. It is left for Nigerian to now wage. Do they want to continue that way, or they want to take a new route?
And away from that, for the third time in a row, the Federation Accounts Allocation Committee, FAC, failed to agree on revenue generated for the month of May. The lingering crisis stems from figures submitted to the committee by the NNPC for distribution in June. Officials refused to comment on the disagreement Tuesday, but said they would reconvene Thursday. It will be recalled that a similar scenario played out March, and a committee was set up to investigate the account books of the NNPC. And Nigeria is showcasing to the world in faraway United States of America the progress and strides in the country's technology, innovation and creative space. Leading the public-private sector collaborative investment roadshow is Vice President Yemi Osinbajo. The Vice President is interacting with some global industry leaders in information technology at the Silicon Valley in San Francisco and demonstrating the determination of the Buhari administration towards ensuring Nigeria becomes a major player in these sectors. And to legislative matters, the Senate has passed 12 bills, including the bill for an act to amend the National Broadcasting Commission Act. The bill, which originated from the House of Representatives, seeks to expand opportunities for the participation of Nigerians in the international media market.
The National Broadcasting Commission Act, Cap N11, Laws of the Federation 2004, to provide for competition in Nigeria and related matters thereto 2018, thoroughly taken and passed.
And now we are considering these bills. And the bills have not been referred to even the committee. Straight away we are considering these bills. We are cooperating with the House fully. But the House is not cooperating with us, sir. We are, so many of us are victims. Bills that have been passed here for 5 months, 6 months, they are there.
That will continue to work with the House of Representatives in matters such as this to ensure easy passage of bills that will serve the best interest of our people. And we expect that the House of Representatives will on their own respond and also reciprocate these gestures from the Senate.
Meanwhile, issues of internal security took center stage again at the House of Representatives Tuesday's plenary, resolved to set up an ad hoc committee to investigate the recent killing of 7 policemen by unknown gunmen in Abuja.
Sophisticated weaponry by the gunmen who also killed 9 civilians in sporadic shootings, including the driver of a known bread marshal.
And that's the news for now. Good Morning Nigeria continues with Sheun and Kingsley after this break.
Let's now join Kunle Adeyeye for the business news, where the federal government is to key into Africa Development Bank's vision of bridging infrastructure gap in Africa.
The African Development Bank recently indicated interest to close Africa's investment gaps by committing $200 billion. Special Advisor to the President and Coordinator Economic Recovery Growth Plan, Folarin Alayande, says the focus of the bank is also in line with the federal government's plan of creating an enabling environment for small and large-scale businesses. He maintains that since Nigeria remains the investment destination in the continent, the government will always be receptive to interventions that will shape the business environment positively. Alayande equally said both public and private sectors will be encouraged to play their traditional roles, which will ultimately strengthen the business environment in Nigeria.
Nigeria is on the path to sustainable growth, right? And one of the key things that the EIGP is trying to do is to drive private sector investment. And that aligns very clearly with what the African Development Bank is trying to do through the African Investment Forum. So there's quite a lot of alignment between the Nigeria's Economic Recovery and Growth Plan and the priorities of the African Development Bank. There's also quite a lot of alignment between the EIGP Focus Lab that we just concluded and the African Investment Forum.
And next is Tuesday's graphic representation of tradings on the floor of the Nigerian Stock Exchange. With business news, I'm Kunle Adeyeye.
Thank you very much, Kunle, for the business package. Next for us now is a review of the front pages of some of today's newspapers.
As usual, Baya Tuebi is here with us in the studio. Thank you very much, Baya Tuebi, for joining us to review the newspapers again this morning.
Kingsley. Good morning, Nigeria.
Yeah, good to see you.
Well, we have a number of stories that are similar in some of the front pages of the newspapers, and the coalition is one of them. On the front page of the leadership, it's a main story. 24 hours after MOU, PDM, 19 others disown coalition, with riders form alliance to support PMB's re-election bid, say they were fraudulently included in PDP's MOU. Take opportunity of reconciliation window, APC tells RAPC. And other stories on the front page of the leadership, herders, farmers clash political blackmail against me, PMB. And the picture story on the front page of the leadership, of course, is the mega rally of the APC in support of the APC governorship candidate in Ekiti State, Kayode Fayemi, which held on yesterday, on Tuesday. Other stories below that picture story, $3 trillion deficit, AFDB to help Nigeria fund infrastructure. Again, FARC meeting ends in deadlock. We had that in our news segment. And CBN directs banks, others to provide BVN on court order. Kingsley, do you want to take some headlines? For
Yes, let's take a look at the Nigerian Tribune. The Nigerian Tribune has a very busy front page, but the lead story is on the Senate. They're saying the Senate will debate Executive Order 6 and to summon AGF. AGF stands for Attorney General of the Federation. The Senate is also moving to amend the Police Act 75 years after. That story is on page 2 in greater detail. Above that, just below the nameplate, you have 3 headlines there. As Zakzaki's trial holds today, police ban procession, page 36. And National Assembly recommends prosecution of Omo Agege and 6 others, suspends him for 180 days. That story is on page 4. Now, you see the photograph there of the APC leaders at the mega rally in Ado-Ekiti yesterday. And the story, there's a headline there that also captures that story. But below that is news out of Owerri. Imo Deputy Governor faces impeachment. Assembly sets up 7-man committee. That's on page 6. And the second lead story on the front page of the Nigerian Tribune, below the photograph, coalition can't stop Buhari in 2019. That's according to APC. With the rider, PDP and others coalition act of opportunism. That's according to Second Republic Governor of Old Kaduna State, Balarabe Musa, page 3, for greater details. Now, other headlines there, say farmers and Mieti Allah meet in Ibadan, reach agreement, page 31. And federal government summons truckers as congestion paralyzes Apapa and Tinkan ports.
Well, let's start with the political stories, and I think there are about 3 of them. Barely a couple of days after some coalition of politicians announced the formation of a coalition of united political parties, others have come out to disown them. Among these are the PDM, NPM, and APDA. They said they are not a member of the coalition. They said they don't know the purpose of the formation, and they claim that the 17 others which they claim were members have not accepted to join. The authority reports that the shoe is on the other side, pointing out that the RAPC and NPDP pulling out of the APC is reminiscent of what happened in 2014 when the NPDP pulled out of the PDP, and his acts is history about to repeat itself. However, the Nation points out that 20 other political parties have also joined forces with the APC to form Coalition of Progressive Political Parties, CPPPP. So, you now have a CUPP emerging and a CPPP also evolving. Chairman of the People's Redemption Party, Alhaji Balarabe Musa, says these coalitions are opportunist. And if you ask me, it is all about 2019.
Yeah, the elections are in the air. It's election.
Yes, and then the stories about impeachment. The first one.
But coalitions are not strange in Nigerian politics.
Yes,
right. We saw that in the First Republic, and we also saw that in the Second Republic, and of course now in the Fourth Republic we have seen it play out. But it's just the movement, the yin and yang, if you like, of their attempts at coalition.
Yes, and they are always a prelude to elections.
That's right.
Yes. Now, with the threats of impeachment, in Benue State, it is reported that security had cordoned off the State House of Assembly over threats about impeachment. But the Speaker of the Benue State House of Assembly, Tekimbi Ikangi, has said that there's nothing like that. There was a minor rift between a senator and some of the and the governor, and therefore that was the alarm that was raised that the Speaker and the governor were about to be impeached. However, in Owerri, 13 members of the House of Assembly have served a notice of impeachment on Deputy Governor Eze Konobi Madumere. They charge him of misconduct and dereliction of duty. Mr. Madumere has denied any wrongdoings at all. You recall there was a similar thing in Enugu. The deputy governor was impeached, and eventually the court vindicated him of all allegations of misconduct. And then lastly, President Muhammadu Buhari was in Ekiti yesterday as part of the APC campaign for his gubernatorial candidate, Dr. Kayode Fayemi. And the President used the occasion to advise the people of Ekiti State to be aware, as people which he described as a fountain of knowledge should be aware of the fallacy of stomach infrastructure. And he also used the occasion to clarify that it is politicians who are blackmailing him and saying that because he's Fulani, he has refused to do anything about farmer herders clashes. His measures have been taken to end the onslaught. He also sought, he also introduced Governor candidate Kayode Fayemi as the APC candidate. 11 governors were there in attendance. And the Saturday election is drawing keen interest. Incumbent Governor Fayoshe says that the arrears of salaries and gratuities will be paid by Friday. And chairman of APC says he has spoken to Ekiti workers and he has told them the first action, if Fayemi wins, will be to pay the salaries and gratuities of workers. So workers are now the political bait in Ekiti.
A number of the stories are also on the front page of the Punch, and we'll just go to the main story, main headline of the Punch. Plateau massacre suspects must be tried in Jos. That's according to former head of state Yakubu Gowon. Rejects military plan to move accused persons to Abuja. Tambuwal blames killings on leadership failure. Above the nameplate of the Punch, court orders for forfeiture of ex-Governor Aliyu's houses, cars, 57 million naira. And then state police bill passes first reading in-house. The front special edition, I think, which is on the World Cup, Russia 2018. African Legion powers France to final. Les Bleus beat Belgium 1-0 to reach third final in 20 years. Football, Kingsley.
Yeah, that's right.
I know you're always interested in that.
Well, it was an interesting match to watch yesterday, highly technical, and but of course the sparks were expected didn't quite manifest. But France are through. Bayo, I believe.
The price at stake that affected the match, but however, France now having won is set to rekindle its 1986 victory. 1988 victory. However, we are to see whether they can rekindle the prominence of the French team that has the quartet of Tigana, Michel Platini, Michael Amoros, and Jean Tigana in the midfield, and they were described as the best in the world at that time.
Yeah, best in the world, but they didn't win the World Cup.
Yes.
That was 1986. I mean, you recall Michel Platini's penalty, sailed over the bar. That was in 1986 in Mexico.
At that time, Germany had the best defense, Brazil had the best attack, and France had the best midfield.
Karl-Heinz Rummenigge, who was always a game changer. Well, let's return to the papers. Daily Independent is next for us. Some disturbing stories. Let's just warn you before we get there. I hope we can skip the photograph on the front page of the Daily Independent. But above the nameplate of Daily Independent, it says herdsmen kill 48 in Adamawa community, burn houses. And drunken policeman shoots woman to death in Calabar. And lead story says opposition blackmailing me with herdsmen's killings. That's according to President Buhari. And no level of gang up will stop the president. That's APC. You also have, let's just go immediately below the photograph there and then take the other headlines. National Assembly invasion. Omo Agege guilty of treason. The reps declare. Ask Senate to suspend him for 180 legislative days and prosecute him immediately. And Bayo, we're running a story here from Thailand.
Yes.
You have that say all 12 boys and coach rescued from Thai flooded cave. That's on page 4. Above that, INEC Chairman Mahmoud Sean Scott summons.
And just before we go to Bayo, on the front page of the New Telegraph, below the nameplate, hijab-wearing lady, 1,561 candidates called to bar. Leadership failure responsible for killings, Dambo Wilders. And then El Zakzaki's trial, police ban processions in Kaduna. Lawmakers begin impeachment of Imo deputy governor. And the main headline of the New Telegraph, 2019 presidency. I'm not losing sleep over party's coalition. Buhari, that's according to President Muhammadu Buhari. Riders, Keyamo, MOU to unseat president, political fraud. APC, no gang up, can't stop Buhari. Okay, Bayo, let's talk about the...
I think Firdaus Amasa joined the 1,560 others and become the 1,561 to be called to the bar, swelling the population of Nigerian lawyers. You will recall that December last year, she was stopped from being called to the bar because she had worn a hijab, and it became very controversial. But the body of benchers and the authorities of the legal profession took the controversy, the steam out of the controversy and permitted hijab. And therefore, Amasa was called to the bar yesterday, and he joined her colleagues to be charged to serve Nigeria, to serve humanity without fear and favor and ill will. Ironically, a lady who had been trained to uphold justice had to take her trainers to court to challenge that authority. It reminds one of what happened in Italy. An Italian minister, his name is Maroni, and he was asked upon to sign a law that is banning hijab. And he says, if the Virgin Mary appears wearing a veil on all her pictures, how can you ask me to sign a hijab law? So sometimes religion becomes controversial. Incidentally too, the wearing or protecting the hair by females has its roots in religion. 1 Corinthians 11 verses 4 to 16 and the Quran chapter 24 verse 3. But it's creeping into social activities and affecting some professions.
All right. Shall we have other stories? I will take the editorial. Well, we talked about the successful rescue of the Thai soccer players, 12 of them and their coach. Very happy ending yesterday.
It's
all of them
around the world.
Absolutely, including the divers, and the other medics who were with them. And significantly, as part of the lessons to learn from all of this, I'm sure that, again, when we talk about jurisdictions that we all know about, those children were taken to Thai hospital. Nobody was saying fly them abroad, fly them abroad.
Yes.
Fly them abroad.
For psychological analysis to make sure that they are all right.
All right. Let's take a look at our editorial this morning from the Punch newspaper. And it's on page 16. The editorial is time running out on state policing. As the saying goes in law, Reps is loquitur, it speaks for itself. It says the resolution by the National Assembly last week backing the establishment of state police represents a major hurdle cleared in the quest for effective law enforcement in Nigeria. But the editorial continues that the lawmakers' declaration should not be another empty statement of intent to pander to the current agitation.
Just quickly before I go to the editorial, about 200,000 live ammunitions were discovered by members of the Board of Customs and Excise when a truck that had a false bottom was discovered to have concealed site consignment. One of the persons who were there, a driver and the owner, said that he actually was taking them to a place where he sells them to hunters who use them, who have licenses to roll gun. But one wonders why he was concealing it instead of acquiring license and actually declaring them for sale. The other is that Thursday midnight, 3rd mainland bridge, the longest of the 3 bridges linking mainland to island, will be closed for maintenance, and it's likely to open on Sunday midnight.
Have they announced the time for the closure?
Yes.
I thought the Federal Controller of Works in Lagos was saying up until yesterday, if they have the current information, that they were going to have a stakeholders meeting to work out the modalities for the closure, partial closure, obviously, because it cannot be total. If it's total, then that would be a nightmare because it means you have only two bridges. That will be the Eko Bridge and Kata Bridge, which will be grossly inadequate.
Two papers I reviewed indicated that the closure will be about midnight Thursday and will open about midnight Sunday.
That means Friday is going to be chaotic. Chaotic. All right.
But now the editorial. The editorial is on a running story about whether to have a state police or no state police. And the editorial is happened on the fact that Section 214 of the 1999 Constitution vests the authority of the police in the federal government. They cite instances in Australia, Germany, and Canada where what obtains there is quite different. And it may be recalled that prior to 1967 and 1968, there were regional policies in Nigeria and to some level police in the local government area. But the fear was that these were abused. And the current fear, again, is that because of the centrality of the police at the center, it is becoming very difficult to maintain law and order in the peripheries. So much so that the state governor has said she is no longer feel safe to be chief security officer of the state. However, a former commissioner of police, Alobi, has said any police commissioner who says he cannot be effective because he's waiting for authority from the center is incompetent. And if example can be cited, you remember in Lagos, Badu boys, kidnapping were very rampant, but the state government and the security agencies were able to muster so much so that just quite about 2 months ago, a month ago, Governor Ambode says could beat his chest to say that Lagos is safe and one of the safest states in Nigeria because they've been able to tackle that. So diligence is required, but sometimes, most often than not, we tend to create institutions or dissipate institutions before we will achieve results.
All right, Baya Toby, that's the much that we can take. We'd like to appreciate you for being with us. We hope you join us tomorrow after watching tonight's match between
England and Croatia.
Croatia and England. We hope that the sparks will fly. And then, all right, we'll take a short break now. When we return, of course, we'll be getting on with the second leg of our conversation on the safe haulage of petroleum products in Nigeria. All right, you're welcome back, but if you just joined us, it's Good Morning Nigeria, reaching you live on the network service of Africa's largest television network, the Nigerian Television Authority. Now, just before we proceed with our conversation, which has to do with the second part of the safe haulage of petroleum products on Nigerian roads, we would like to inform you that at about now, a sensitization walk is taking place in Abuja and is intended to mark the 2018 African Union Anti-Corruption Day celebration. We are going to therefore interrupt our program, that's Good Morning Nigeria, briefly for a live transmission of the walk, and we'll be right back.
Okay. Thank you, studio. This is the outside broadcast live. This is the outside broadcast crew of the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, reaching you live from the old head office of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, for the African Anti-Corruption Roadmap, courtesy of the EFCC. Let's take a check on how the whole process started. In 2011, heads of government, heads of states and government of the African Union adopted July 11 every year as Anti-African Anti-Corruption Day, following the adoption of the Convention on Combating Financial Crimes. This event was significant, following the fact that President Muhammadu Buhari of Nigeria was as the African anti-corruption champion, and is signing into law of the 006 on how to prevent financial crimes. The road place almost all head offices of the across the country. That is talking about Lagos, Kaduna, Ibadan, and of course Maiduguri, among others. Here with me is the head of the Director of Public Affairs of the EFCC, Mr. Osita Iwaja. light on the significance of this roadwork to the fight against corruption in Nigeria. Sir, let's briefly hear from you. What is the significance of this day?
Well, this day is to get people's buy-in of all Nigerians to support the war against corruption, which this administration championed and is noted for, not just in Nigeria, but indeed the whole world. This is the hallmark of this administration. So it's important that the people who this fight is for get to know what it's about, get to lend their support, unflinching support, and get a total buy-in. That is why we are raising consciousness, we are sensitizing people about not just the activities of the EFCC, but about the activities of all the anti-graft agencies in the country, and tying it with what you let your viewers know about the declaration by all the African countries that today, the July 11th of 2018, will be marked as African Anti-Corruption Day. And we are signifying this collective fight by organizing this roadwork among other issues, other projects, other movements across the country that we are carrying out.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
And NGO partners and members of the civil organization are also taking part in this work. The work starts from the head office, head office of the EFCC, with a brief stopover at the defense headquarters, then terminates at the Ego Square at the Treham zone of the Federal Capital Territory. I now hand you over to the studio for the continuation of our regular program. Then see you later at the termination point at the Ego Square of this critical roadmap. My name is Mie Ogedi, doing the commentary here. Thanks.
Thank you, Mia, and welcome back to Good Morning Nigeria. Kingsley, was indeed symbolic that we joined that walk. It was for a good cause, and also considering that President Buhari is the African champion of the crusade. And right now, to start our discussion on safety haulage of petroleum products, let's take this report by Emmanuel Anyimiro on the stakeholders meeting.
A substantial number of the 1.2 million people killed annually in road crashes in Africa die of fire explosions from tanker accidents. The latest explosion on Otedola Bridge along the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway last month has again brought to the fore the lack of adherence to safety standards by such vehicles, which this summit hopes to address.
We must very quickly adopt a multimodal, intermodal approach to freight and cargo transportation across Nigeria. This entails a functional rail access into our ports to enable majority of the cargo entering into the country to be conveyed by rail to the closest terminals to their final destinations.
We are going to make sure now that every year, any driver that is not trained, retrained every year, will not be allowed to drive any of the articulated vehicles. Then the Safe to Load program too is going to be mandatory. The retroreflective, highly flammable signs must be properly displayed. We ensure this NUPEC PTD has worked on, they've imported this, but we are going to work with them.
Many are of the opinion that government should play its part of putting every facility in place to reduce such occurrences, a request that the SGF wants the summit to discuss and come up with recommendations that will assist government to end the spate of road crashes in Nigeria.
Enjoin you to come up with recommendations that are adequate, agreeable, enforceable, and binding on all for the restoration of sanity on our roads.
Boss Mustafa said government will set up an interministerial committee to monitor the implementation, recommendations, and plan of action from the experts.
All right, as we indicated earlier, we had the first part of this conversation on Friday, that was last week, and on Monday there was a stakeholders meeting to which our correspondent just referred to. A number of resolutions were taken at that meeting, and joining us to discuss these recommendations as well as other matters arising, we have three of the guests who were with us last Friday. First, we would like to welcome again Mr. Aloga Ignatius Ogbogo. He is Executive Secretary of and also National President of the National Association of Road Transport Owners. He's Interim President, West African Road Transport Union, WATU. Mr. Ogbogo, pleasure to have you again on Good Morning Nigeria.
Good morning, viewers.
All right. One of the new faces joining us today, the other two faces will be joining us from Lagos. They were with us last Friday. But the new face who is joining the conversation this morning is Mane Ochubojo. He's a lawyer and a transportation consultant. Mr. Ochubojo, pleasure to have you with us on the program.
Thank you for having me.
Okay.
And from our Lagos studio, we have joining us Taiwo Olufemi Salam. He's the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Transport of Lagos State. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, viewers.
Gabriel, President, Chartered Institute of Logistics and Transport. We're glad to have all of you join us, gentlemen. Thank you very much.
All right, let's begin with Mr. Aloga Ignatius Ogbogo. Of course, against the background of our conversation and also against the background of the stakeholders meeting, what was your impression of the stakeholders meeting? Did attendees speak up on the issues that actually bother them and therefore created the opportunity for a better articulation of what the solutions should be to the incessant crashes involving petrol tankers, of course, occasionally various fatalities as well as losses of property?
Yes, I must start by commending the SGF for convening the meeting. It was a good meeting and all the stakeholders there were able to clear their minds, and consequent upon that, far-reaching decisions were taken, and we are impressed with the decisions taken. And it was mandatory by all of we mandated the decisions taken there and we'll comply with the decisions.
All right. What, in your opinion, were the most significant decisions reached?
Yeah, even though some of the decisions reached there were existing before now, the issue of recertification of truck, at least twice in a year, the issue of mandatory unloading, on-the-spot loading before trucks are allowed to to move product out of the depot. The issue of also truck refleeting was a very important component of that decision. You see, before now, what we had, you had issues of trucks not being standardized. And that's as a result of transporters not being able to break even. So the issue of truck acquisition, the SGF hammered on it, and he said he was going to direct or convene a meeting between Ministry of Industry that the issue of assisting transporters to acquire trucks was emphatically, and that he was going to hammer on it. So this is a good decision that was also. Then the issue of roads, was also discussed. We are aware accidents is a function of so many variables. Roads, then the issue of the human factor, the issue of training and retraining of drivers were also emphasized. There are a lot of these decisions and cutting across all the sectors. Then the issue of DPR, also trying to harmonize regulations because the regulations are in bits. So the issue of harmonizing them also came on board. Then the issue of multiplicity of security agencies on the road, it was also touched on. So some of these decisions were there, but again, there was a need to harmonize them. So the FDF hammered on it, and then again, it was accepted in good faith, and because it was going to curb accidents on the roads, even though some of these decisions were there before now.
Let's go at this point to the Permanent Secretary in Lagos. Mr. Salam, you are a major stakeholder because a good number, in fact, the very high volume of the haulage of petroleum products happens in Lagos, and you have this very high number of the tanker drivers and tankers in Lagos. What were your takeaways from this stakeholders meeting?
What did you say? 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 What did you say Can you come in again, please?
This stakeholders meeting, I'm not sure if you were there, but even if you were not, I'm sure you know what was discussed there by now. So what were your takeaways from this stakeholders meeting?
Yes, good morning, viewers, once again. I was at the stakeholders meeting called by the Secretary of the Government of the Federation in, at Abuja, representing His Excellency Mr. Akinwumi Ambode. And just what the last speaker said, that was the summary of what was discussed there. But one thing that I looked at is that if you look at the DPR, what they were saying there is totally unacceptable to us in Lagos. They have licensed many tank farms and they have put safety into jeopardy. And most of these tank farms, that is where these tankers are loading. Are they really compromising the loading, the safety before they load? Because when these tankers load and they are coming out, from their loading point of where they are coming, you just come on the road of Lagos and you see how those tankers are on the road, including the MPA. When the containers are loaded and you see how these vehicles were moving, the question you ask yourself is that, who loaded these trailers? Why are they loaded? They were not lashed, they were not hooked, and it's easier for them to create, to have an accident. And as we were there talking on that Tuesday or Monday, another incident was nearly happening in Lagos under the Ojota Bridge. But thank God we quickly nip it in the bud as well. On daily basis, we have nothing less than 10 to 15 containers or tankers having a problem of incident or accident on Lagos roads. And we say we have to stop this thing. It cannot continue. We are the receiving end. We cannot stop them from moving at night because Nigeria is coming out of recession and we have to be together with Nigeria. Therefore, for us to say this vehicle should be on the road always, safety must not be compromised. That's what we are saying.
Thank you very much, Dr. Taiwo Salam. Dr. Taiwo Salam, Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Transportation in Lagos. Let's try to examine the practicality of the plan of action, which of course emerged from the stakeholders meeting last Monday under the auspices of the Office of the Secretary of the Government of the Federation. One is mandatory certification of all haulage vehicles to be carried out twice in every 12 calendar months. Let's say, therefore, between January and December, you have 2 mandatory checks on haulage vehicles. Let's narrow it down strictly down to, say, petrol or fuel haulage vehicles. Do we have the capacity to undertake this? And who undertakes the mandatory certification and where will it be carried out? I'm asking this question against the background of the experience in Lagos. If you recall, in the year 2001 or thereabout, when the mandatory test of vehicles came about in Lagos, the MOT test, it went on for a while and thereafter it seemed to have just virtually dissipated. So do we have the capacity to undertake these mandatory checks of haulage vehicles twice every year? Where should it be undertaken and who undertakes it?
Thank you very much. The issue of that MOT was moribund because we now realize that people are now going there and collecting this certificate without even presenting their vehicle. But the new system that we have adopted now, which they are also doing in Abuja, is the computerized vehicle inspection center services. In other words, you take your vehicle there, they will check the brake, they will check the suspension, they will check the light, they will check everything that needs to be checked. And whether we have the capacity, yes, His Excellency Mr. Akinwumi Ambode has just approved that a very, one should be built at Ojodubaga and another 4 should be built at Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu truck terminal. So for you to access our truck terminal now, you first of all need to go, as you are coming in, you go to that Lagvy centers where you are cleared, and immediately you are cleared, you'll be tagged green. Then with that green code, you'll be allowed into the truck terminal. So when you are going out of the truck terminal to go and load now, nobody stops you on the road once they see that green tag. So you can go to tank farm or go to the port and load, because the compromise and the conspiracy that is going on there is another thing entirely. So if they are going in to load, once you can rub their hands, the truck goes in and load. And when they are coming back, they're supposed also to check that they are lashed, they are also hooked, they don't check them. Once you rub palms. So we don't want this thing to happen. For you to drive on Lagos Road, you must have Lagvis. And it is twice in a year because it's commercially oriented trucks. If it is private, it is once in a year. We are fully ready. We have the capacity to take all this one. Presently, we are having 5, and another 5 are coming. And when we finish that, all the news and crannies that enter Lagos, Ekpe side we are having there, Songo side we are having there, Badagry we have got one already, and we also have at Ojodubaga to complement, but we are going to have one very close to the express, so that when you are coming, before you enter Lagos Road, you do it there before, and you are green. Once you are green, then you go in and load. You see the Abba centers the Abba truck terminal we are going in, all the ones they said they are building, they are just a child play. We are bringing in an internationally acceptable truck terminal that will have all the facilities, including security, fire stations, and many other things. The dormitory for them to sleep, and bedroom and every other thing for them, clinic, everything for them to sleep, security light and every other thing for them to sleep. So once they were treated like a human being, they behave like a human being. It's a pity at the meeting on Monday, all what they are saying about these drivers were true. They don't live like human beings. So how do you expect them to behave like human beings? Somebody that needs to go into the port, get all the goods, and move out within 24 hours, still spending 3 or 4 weeks on the road. I urge you, send your cameramen down. Let them go and see what is happening along Oshodi Apapa Express up to Sele. Let them go and see what is happening on Western Avenue up to Ikorodu Road and beyond. Let them, even the MD of Nigerian Railway Corporation, I just wrote him a letter that on about Macaulay Way, they are parking trucks there. Why? 2 people have already died. Is it because we are not charging for murder? They should stop all this thing, for God's sake. They should not spoil Lagos. They should not spoil the road. Is it not because it's their own family? Come to a halt. And we thank the SGF for what he has done. He has quickly nipped in the bud by calling all the stakeholders to be together and carry out the best thing. And we also thank the court marshal too on this. Thank you.
Dr. Salam, thanks a lot. Let's pause you in the meantime. Seated beside you there is Ibrahim Jibril, who is President, Chartered Institute of Logistics and Transport. If you recall last Friday, when we took the first part of this conversation, he was in Lagos and you were here with us in the Abuja studios. Madam Ibrahim Jibril, of course, you've listened to the 2 guests who have spoken on this matter. I would like to have your thoughts, for instance, on the practical implementation of this plan of action, particularly, or rather, kicking off with the mandatory certification of all haulage vehicles to be carried out twice in every 12 calendar months. It is not only in Lagos you have haulage vehicles, you have haulage vehicles all across the country, and accidents involving or crashes involving petrol tankers take place in different parts of the country. Do we have the capacity to enforce this? And if so, where should the vehicles go to for the mandatory certification, or what do we need to do?
Very well, thank you very much. Let me start by commending the government for coming up with the stakeholders forum that took place on Monday this week. And to say that the issues or the resolution reached there were quite germane. And for an industry like logistics and transport, which contributes more than 50% to the services industry globally, I think this is a very important industry that we must be proactive in doing what we have to do in order to manage ourselves and the facilities in the industry. Having said that, The resolutions, particularly you are referring to the certification, it is very, very important. We must do the certification. But my greatest challenge is that we are always reacting to situations rather than being proactive. And at the end of the day, we end up being, or rather chasing to ourselves to see how we can solve these problems that are arising on a daily basis. But having said that also, it is important for us to understand the human factor of this industry. We are talking about standardization and enforcement of standards. Last week here, we spoke about even the construction standards of these tankers, which nobody is addressing up to today. And I hope with the RTSSS, that is Road Transport Safety Strategy scheme, we'll be able to address that area also. But coming back to the human angle of the resource of the industry, I still do not see us having the capacity to manage the logistics and transport industry. We have to professionalize, because what we have as of today in the industry is quacks, managing quacks in this industry. There is no professional practice at all. We have practitioners, quite all right, but how many of them are professionals, particularly in the road mode? The road mode has so much catastrophe to the level that, in fact, it is believed that road transport business is bad business in this country. Of course, it will continue to be bad business because we don't have the right capacity to manage the business itself. We don't have the right capacity to manage the people that are in the industry. That is why I say quacks are managing quacks in the road transport sector of our subsector of the transport economy. And that is a key issue that we must look at. That is fundamental, because if we do not have the right skill set, we do not have the right competencies in place, and people do not have the right knowledge to manage the industry, this catastrophe will continue to befall us. And that is why we're calling on the industry practitioners, authorities, to key into the professionalization of the transport and logistics industry, such that some of these problems will be managed properly, better, and such that we can make progress out of it. If you talk about certification, yes, it is very good. Yes, we should do it biannually. Yes, if you can do it more frequently, the better for us. But we need to automate. But who are going to do these things? Are they professionals? We have quite a number of people who in the road safety corps who are logistics and transport professionals, and we have quite a number of them in other modes of transportation. Unfortunately, the road transport is not seeing this, and the earlier we start in this direction, the better. For us in CILT, we have accredited, we are here to regulate the practice, and we have accredited so many training providers in the country, some of which are very, very well recognized in the country, like the Institute of Transport Technology in Zaria, like the Maritime Academy of Nigeria in Oron, and some universities here in the Southwest, like Olabisi Onabanjo and some other training, private sector practitioners. We have licensed these people to do this training. But the road mode has completely ignored professional training, and at the end of the day, all we talk about is training of drivers. What kind of training of drivers do we provide in the first instance? And who are the people managing the drivers? Who are the people managing the hardware? Who are the people managing the trucks and that are plying the roads? Who are doing the planning? I think the earlier we address the issue of capacity building with regards to the human beings, the better. The issue of truck refleeting of the industry came up also at the discussion. This is very good, very germane, and the old trucks that have been discarded in some other climes that are being brought here will be stopped very soon, and that will be very good. The funding arrangement must be such that it becomes very effective. People who are in the industry, people who know what it means to haul cargo and products are the ones that should be allowed to key into this scheme. Thank you very much.
Ibrahim Jibril will be back with you, but let's come to Mani Ochuboju. Now, you are a transportation consultant, and from what Jibril said there, that we're usually reactive and not proactive. Why is it so difficult for us to ensure just the minimum standard of safety on our roads with regards to this haulage of petroleum products?
he also mentioned that in the transport industry, particularly, there are aspects of quacks managing quacks. I think that has to do, with due respect to my friend Aloga here, to the owners of these fleets. The owners of the fleets put profit above people. They put profit above safety. And that seriously compromises safety regulations in Nigeria. So far in Nigeria, with the establishment of Federal Road Safety in 1988, the issue of safety has increasingly become one of the key issues of consciousness and issues of practical application in Nigeria. The awareness is increasing, and it has been very helpful. I don't think in that regard we've not been proactive. I think we've been proactive. The other aspect which I'll take from the logistics contribution is that road safety also has a very good professional background, in dealing with enforcement and supervision. That is an aspect that needs to be enhanced and increased. That aspect of road safety is an aspect that I believe will contribute to minimizing haulage crashes and incidents. I call it incidents because in Nigeria, the use of language regarding road safety is an accident have happened. But the truth is, these are not accidents. They are not accidents because of the level of negligence. They are not accidents because we know that most of these drivers are poorly trained. Most of these vehicles are poorly maintained. Most of the fleets are poorly maintained. There are already road safety regulations in place to ensuring safety on our roads anyway. And this goes beyond just haulages. It goes to fleet vehicles, like those that have more than 5, those that have more than 25, those that have more than 100, that carry passengers across the length and breadth of Nigeria. Like Kingsley pointed out, this is not an issue for Lagos alone. It is happening in Port Harcourt, it's happening in Kano, it's happening here in Abuja, it's happening in Kano, Sokoto, it's happening in Otukpo, it's happening in Calabar. All over the place, it's happening on a daily basis. If you look at the statistics dealing with road safety and crashes in Nigeria, we have an average of at least 20 to 25 crashes involving fatalities on a daily basis. The fact that the Lagos one have managed to capture our imagination is just simply an exception, quite frankly. It's happening every day anyway. And it's happening today. It's going to happen tomorrow. Why? Because most of those that own these fleets, they take safety for granted. You don't need somebody to come to your house to tell you to handle your gas carefully. If not, your house will go ablaze. You don't need a safety officer to be there to tell you about the gas and fire management. You know it already. The same for road safety. Road safety regulations are there. They've been there since 1988. And they've been an elaborate scheme of standardization that goes across the board that all these fleet operators are supposed to abide by. It's not a new thing. It's even backed by regulation. That's why I like what the secretary to the federal government said, that what is being agreed here, they are agreeable, they are binding, and they are enforceable. Why are they enforceable? They are already existing regulations anyway. The additional thing that maybe is a bit new in all of this is the Fashola's regulation that just came on stream recently regarding weights, axle weights of heavy-duty vehicles. I commend Fashola for that. That's a new thing that he has added to safety dimensions in Nigeria, whereby you monitor those that carry heavy-duty vehicles, their weights, their axle weights, if it's appropriate or not. And the banning of all these decrepit vehicles being imported into Nigeria, using Nigeria as a dumping ground. In itself, is even a trade rules violation, where you dump vehicles you don't use in your country in another person's country. So even WTO rules are even being violated there. Besides safety rules, trade rules are being violated. You don't go and start dumping things you don't need in your country in another person's country, whether they are called Belgium or Tokumbo. All of that is illegal. Those are aspects of things we should look at. But more importantly, we should continue to encourage Federal Road Safety Commission in the work they do. They are generally overwhelmed. They have a lot of work to do. Maybe, again, the police need to also be properly trained, because I say so with due respect to the police. Many of them don't even know some of the safety issues. So if you don't know safety rules are being violated, how do you enforce it? Yes, issues like overload may seem apparent, but there are other safety regulations that are not so apparent. There are other things that should be dealt with regarding enforcement, like where vehicles are being loaded. We are talking about, what do you call it, the tank farms in Lagos, the ports in Lagos. But that's not all. What about the rail lines? During the stakeholders meeting, the committee chairman on land transportation, I think Ashafa, he talked about the interconnection between the roads and the rails. We also have to look at reviving the rails. There has been a conspiracy to keep the rails comatose, and that conspiracy has to be dealt with. And it is not just something for the Minister of Transportation alone to deal with. Other Nigerian stakeholders, including those who own fleets, take responsibilities of some of the things going wrong with the rail transportation. Why should we be carrying dangerous goods like petroleum on a daily basis passing through our streets? Why can't they go by rail? Those are issues that we need to look at as well. And it is critical and it is urgent because it's happening every day. All right. Thank you very much, Chuboju. Thanks a lot for your comments. Let's bring in again Mr. Aloga Ogbogo. Mr. Aloga Ogbogo, now give us a sense of how, for instance, the plan of action, in other words, the resolutions at the stakeholders meeting on Monday, could be cascaded down to, shall we say, the various sub-stakeholders who were not present at the meeting. We're now talking about the tanker drivers themselves, those who actually handle the wheels, the truck owners, and the other operators. How will the message get down to them, for them to know that, well, this is a new deal?
Well, first of all, let me start by reacting on the issues of that of conspiracy trying to kill the rail.
We understand. So, yeah. I'm sorry, because we may be pressed for time.
Okay.
I tell you this. Yeah. The late Samuel Ogbemudia, when he was chairman of the Nigerian Railway Corporation, said something to that effect. So if we open up that angle of discussion now, we probably would not be able to discuss the issue of haulage, of safe haulage of petroleum products by tankers, for instance.
Well, most of the people, the critical stakeholders were in attendance. Petroleum tanker drivers were there, NATO were also there, Britain were also there. All the critical stakeholders were in attendance at that stakeholders forum. And the resolutions, the decisions taken there, the action plans taken there was also endorsed. And after the secretary to the federal government spoke, we stood up and gave our goodwill messages endorsing all the action plans that were taken there. You see, like again in this country, when laws are taken, enforcement is a problem. So if these laws are going to be enforced, there has to be a pattern of enforcement. Right? Like my colleague was saying, we pick cargo from the port, and the content of the cargo in the container is not known to the transporter. And in the port there are supposed to be weigh bridges. The weigh bridges are not there. And you see, the dead weight kills a truck. We are not in support of that. There are so many good trucks in this country, but the environment again spoils the truck. In Nigeria, we have close to 200,000 kilometers of road. And 30% of these kilometers of road belong to federal government. And 60% of these federal government are all in a bad state. It is possible to have a good truck on Nigerian road, and the trucks will get, there's no way we put a good truck on road from Lagos, and before it comes to, from Kano, and before it comes to Lagos, it won't go bad. So we have to look at some of these issues. They're interconnected, you know. And the issue of regulation has been in bits. I agree with you that regulation is a problem. It is only in Nigeria you have anybody, transportation is an all-commerce affair. We are not in support of that. We have also urged for regulation. Now, the road transport sector is a sector that conveys close to 90% or 80% of cargo and passengers in this country, yet it's one sector that is not regulated. And we have always urged for that. There is need for regulation. There is need to issues of training and retraining. Even though you say who trains the driver, we in the transport sector, we relate with Federal Road Safety Corps. And I must say that Federal Road Safety Corps has been living up to expectations. And we agree with them. We've been following up their our trainings are not just conducted haphazardly. We are mindful of that. As to how the resolutions will get to the stakeholders, there is need for enforcement, and all the critical stakeholders were in that meeting, and they keyed in and bought into the resolution. So I don't think implementation will be a problem.
Yeah, but respond directly to the comment by Ibrahim Jibril in Lagos. Out of respect, let's just recast it, that what we have in the logistics business, including, of course, haulage of petroleum products, quacks managing quacks.
Yeah, I said there's an issue of regulation. And because of I said there's an issue of regulation. First and foremost, the sector has been neglected for a very long time. And the roads are bad. Issues of training and retraining is not addressed. So we need to, there is a law now, the National Transport Commission is about coming on board. We believe that when that commission comes on board, issues of this kind of magnitude that has got to do with the sectors will be addressed. Well, on our own part, you look at a truck and you say, why is this truck bad? A good truck is an asset to the owner. But there are a lot of factors, you know, that militates against the even if you have a good truck, it goes bad because of the state of road. There is also absence of volume. And the function, the income of the transporter is the function of his turnaround. Right? We have the issue of, you can't even break even because of the multiplicity of the collections along the corridor. You have so many checkpoints from Lagos, from Kano to Enugu, passing through Otukpo. You have more than 250 checkpoints. We have said this over and over, and that has got to do with our break-even, which is inversely related to truck refleeting. There are a lot of issues in this industry. And I think the only way forward is to have a synergy. There should be a synergy among all the critical stakeholders. With government there, we have Bank of Commerce and Industry, we have Bank of Agriculture, but the transport subsector, that is the mover of the economy, has been neglected. There has been no form of assistance whatsoever. Whatever that is happening in the sector is 100% handled and financed by the transport, in spite of all the challenges of bad road, extortion, issue of fake spare parts, that we have a regulatory body that is supposed to also supervise. You talk of trucks coming into this country 10, 15, 20 years, there are people that are also supposed to regulate that. So the issue critically, basically, are issues of regulation and synergy.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gogo. We'll be taking a short break now, and we'll be back with our discussion. Stay with us.
If you hear a bomb...
All right, you're welcome back, and it's still Good Morning Nigeria. We're live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. Let's go over now to our guests in Lagos, both of them the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Transportation in Lagos, as well as Ibrahim Jibril, who is also President of the Chartered Institute of Logistics and Transport. Dr. Taiwo Salam, who is Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Transportation in Lagos. Let me ask this question. There is, I believe, a National Council on Transportation. Of course, you would normally attend such council meetings. I'm wondering, at this stakeholders meeting on Monday, were there other state governments that were represented? Because Lagos isn't the only state where you have petrol tankers moving around and where you are also having incidents of fatal crashes.
Yes, thank you. I wouldn't know whether they were not invited, but Lagos State government was really was invited, which I represented His Excellency. But just as the last speaker said, before, the National Council on Transport has given a lot of communique about the articulated vehicle and tankers and tank farms, how they should operate, all this. But when these documents are ready, it's as if they are swept under carpets and nobody does anything. The president of Chartered Institute of Logistics and Transport was saying that it is a quack leading quack. If you ask me, I would say it is the blind leading blind. Because at the end of the day, catastrophe come up on board. And that's what we continue having. You see, until they put round peg in a round hole, we will continue having all this problem. Because it seems everybody knows it. Whereas you cannot give what you don't have. Transport is a specialized area. They should allow the transportant to carry out their job. That's number one. Number two, we have already taken the bull by the horn. We have already meeting all the stakeholders in Lagos, of which we released press statement that we are now ready to work together, and the issue of NUPENG or PTD or anything going on strike, if we started reacting, has been things of the past now. We will allow all trucks to load, but we will not allow bad trucks to load all these dangerous goods and pass through Lagos. That's number one. Number two, we also want the Shippers Council to please let all the shipping companies that are operating in Lagos go back and have holding base. They don't have holding base. All of them park their trucks on the road. They don't have holding base. And that is one of their responsibilities, that they should have holding base before they were licensed. Yes. Secondly, we've also informed the tank farms. The tank farms should have a minimum of 50 parking trailer parks. You find out they don't have. All this must be nipped in the bud. We, as government in Lagos State, we want to be part of this thing. When you are licensing them, we want to know. Come and see proliferation of petrol filling stations in Lagos, all licensed by DPR. All these things must stop. This is what we are saying. People's lives are in jeopardy, and as a responsible and inclusive government, we're not going to allow this to continue. And we appreciate the federal government that has also looked into this and believe that things must be done. Look, if you put a way bridge, they will circumvent it. After the way bridge, they will go and load again and go. The vehicle we are talking about, the information was just coming in now that the man loaded 60,000 liters. That is 4 times the capacity of that truck. But you know the good things, we are almost getting there. I don't want to jeopardize the investigation. We are almost catching up with them because we have got the correct number of the truck, and we are getting there very, very soon. We will not allow all this thing to go on. We're not going to sweep this under the carpet. Enforcement, we are going to start now. Now that the federal government is also in tandem with us, we're going to start, and we're not going to leave any stone unturned. So the Shippers Council, the MPA, the DPR, they need to come together with the stakeholder forum that we held on Monday. Everybody, all hands needs to be on deck and stop unnecessary and avoidable accidents and killing of people on the road. Thank you.
Jibril, I will come to you now. Now, the transportation sector, is it free for all, has been said here all across? And then, is that a major problem? And then let's now talk about the welfare and the maintenance of vehicles as well.
Certainly, it is a major problem in the logistics and transport sector because they have made it an all-commerce affair. And you can imagine an industry that contributes about 12% of global GDP, and it is left to the hands of quacks. I believe this is most unacceptable, and government must do something about it. Operators must do something about it. We have been clamoring for capacity building so that everybody will professionalize. But coming back to the issues of the resolutions reached at the stakeholders forum, I think some of the decisions reached are like quick fixes in the short term and medium term. We need to also look at these problems in the long term. And what I mean by this is that we need to have a knowledge of the industry that we're operating in. We need to do a lot more. Mention has been made of the National Council of Transport, and which is a very, very good platform for advocacy, good platform for taking decisions in order to holistically, as a nation, come up with policies that will help us manage the industry. I can remember for a very long time, the NCT never held until in this studio, we raised the issue with the Honorable Minister of Transportation, who graciously agreed that the next NCT should hold. That was about a year ago in Sokoto, and it held. And in that forum, it was agreed that we must revisit the issue of national transport policy. And the minister promptly set up a committee, of which I was a member, and we came up with that policy. That policy has been submitted over 7 months ago, and like my colleague here has said, the permanent secretary, it's like some of these regulations and policies are swept under the carpet. I don't know what is happening to that policy up to today. It should have gone to the FEC, Federal Executive Council, for approval so that we have a baseline of which we can operate from. And having said that, we need to understand the industry we're operating in. If we want to do refleeting, refleeting should be based on industry needs. Do we really have data on the cargo that is being generated that will require the number of fleet to service the industry? We need to do a data audit, a cargo audit. We also need to do a fleet audit so that in the long run we can plan on how to address these shortcomings as far as fleeting is concerned, so that it will meet the requirements of the industry. Having said that also, I think we need to also address the issue of safety. Everybody is commending Federal Road Safety Corps. Great, but they have more to do. There is a lot more that they need to do. Some of these accidents that you see are safety issues. They come up and incidences because of safety issues. And there is one particular issue that I think the road safety also needs to look at, and that is the issue of all these vehicles that get burnt on the road and breakdown of vehicles on the road, and they are by the side of the road permanently for ages. These obstructions need to be cleared because they are some of the primary sources of accidents on our highways in this country. I have had cause to discuss with some of the tanker drivers, truck drivers across the country, and some of them, when we accuse them of driving on the fast lane instead of going on the slow lane, they give you the reason that there are so many obstructions on the shoulder and it makes it dangerous for them to drive on the slow lane, and so they prefer to go on the fast lane. And that is another source of accidents on our roads. I think we need to look at these things in the long run so that we can plan for the future, not that we are always reacting to nasty situations when they arise. And believe you me, the NATO man mentioned all the challenges that they are having. There is nothing causing all those challenges apart from having people who are not professionals managing their businesses. And in the oil industry today, oil companies, how many of them have professionals working in their transport units in those companies? Even with the members of NATO, how many professionals do they have managing their fleet and managing their businesses? Virtually none, because the road sector has been totally unprofessionalized, and that is why it is completely unregulated. We cannot make meaningful progress if you don't have people who know it to manage it. You can imagine the accounting profession having less than the logistics and transport industry has over 20 times more practitioners than the accountancy profession. But you can see that nobody can venture into any meaningful accounting endeavor without being a professional. Why is this subsector that is contributing so much to the economy of the country globally and also globally is being neglected and not being professionalized? As long as we don't do that, believe you me, this industry will continue to be plagued by mismanagement and such catastrophes that we are seeing. Thank you very much.
I'm just wondering, Ibrahim Jibril, Madam Ibrahim Jibril, thank you very much. We'll come back to you in Lagos, but let's return to our guests in Abuja. Ochugboju, that's the lawyer in our midst. Some of the quick fixes and ultimately long-term issues that we need to deal with relate to regulation and enforcement of the regulations. Now, if you look at the mix of the resolutions arrived at on Monday and the issues that will be need to take along going forward, you have a number of regulators that are present there. You have the DPR, that's Department of Petroleum Resources. You have Federal Road Safety Corps. Not much mention was made of state traffic control agencies and what the state governments themselves would need to do. But let us assume they can also be thrown into the mix. And then you have the PEF, Petroleum Equalization Fund. And then Aloga has also talked about Standards Organization of Nigeria. How do we ensure the proper synergy amongst all of these agencies working to ensure that indeed these resolutions get the needed traction to ensure that there's a reduction, drastic reduction in crashes involving these tankers and so on going forward?
I think one of the ways in which there can be synergy among all the various stakeholders is precisely one of the policies that the Federal Road Safety Commission has been pushing, the Road Traffic Safety Standardization Scheme. The Safety Standardization Scheme pulls in all the other actors, stakeholders involved in road safety management in Nigeria. That scheme, safety standardization, has actually a regulatory backing. So it's not as if it is not regulated properly. It is properly regulated. I think it comes down to what we were discussing here when we had that break with Aloga, that they need the issue of enforcement. Enforcement is the lifeblood of the law. Without proper enforcement, it will be lethargic and it will be moribund. It will be ineffective. If we can take a closer look at the issues of enforcement of that road traffic safety standardization scheme, it will help because it requires all the various stakeholders to have a safety unit. I think the logistics man was talking about quacks not being professional. If you have a safety unit with a safety manager in every organization, including private organizations that have fleets of vehicles of above 5, it's mandatory already, it's a law. But most folks don't know that. Most organizations don't know that. They just run this thing the way they like. The man from Lagos says is the blind leading the blind. But that's truly not correct too, in the sense that there are actually regulations already that are dealing with both the short term and the long term. The issue of recertification of various organizations, the issue of dealing with the validation of the operator's own licensing, all of that is there. I think we may also have to take a second look at the issue of railway and inland water transportation as well. I don't know if the inland water transportation people were there, or even the railway people were there in the stakeholders meeting, except for Shafa, the gentleman in charge of land transportation, who talked about railway. Those are intermodal connections that are essential in reducing the bulk of road vehicles on our road. Why do we have more than 80 to 85% of all our haulage on the road? Why can't we use inland waterways? Our tank farms all over in Lagos, in Port Harcourt, in Calabar, in Akwa Ibom, why can't they use the waterways, for goodness sake? Why can't they use the rails? That would significantly decongest Lagos. Lagos is clamoring. But for goodness sake, not just Lagos alone. What about Port Harcourt? I've been to Port Harcourt for MBA conferences a few times. And I got stuck just trying to take a taxi from one point to another to attend an MBA conference. You just can't move around Port Harcourt because of all these kind of things that the people in Lagos are complaining about.
Still on enforcement. So if you're on Friday, when we took on this subject, I asked the question of one of the guests whether their members, have suffered any legal penalties on account of the accidents involving tankers. So enforcement doesn't necessarily have to do, as you know, with public law. It also has to do with private law. Why is it, for instance, that persons who suffer horrendous losses and damages, arising from these tanker accidents, do not seek to enforce their rights? Look at the number of vehicles that have been bumped on the Tedola Bridge, for instance, and several others. And how many of the drivers, who were found complicitous, how many of them, either in Kirikiri or at Kuje?
Kingsley, thank you very much for raising this point. I think this is a critical issue of national policy, law enforcement, and the development of tort law in Nigeria. People get involved in accidents, quote and unquote, and they just throw their hands up and say it's God. No, it's not God. It is the devilish and fiendish nature of the drivers and those involved. It is also the bad roads that are involved. In most countries, like in England, where I trained, if there's a road incident, and I like that word incident, You sue those involved. You sue even the municipals in charge of that road. So all the so-called federal road, drag them to court for goodness sake and deal with them. By the time you begin to get them to pay fines, they will sit up. By the time they begin to become culpable and bear liability for the road incidents, they will sit up in dealing with their roads. By the time vehicle owners get dragged into lawsuits on a daily basis, my friend Neto here, if he goes to court 4 or 5 times because of road accident, you will sit up and professionalize his drivers and make sure he gets a safety manager in his fleet and make sure they deal with issues of safety properly. And the issue that the logistics man is talking about professionalizing will set in. Folks that obey laws in Europe and America, it's not because they are better drivers than us, no. Or it's because they know enforcement will catch up with them. You see Nigerians running all over the place here stupidly. The moment they get to England, they drive well. Our friends who come to England, the moment they enter England, they sit up, they wear their seatbelt. Things they don't do in Nigeria, check their vehicles. They see a policeman, they sit upright. They don't do that here in Nigeria. They see a policeman, they even wave at him, even when they are violating the rules. Those are issues we need to deal with. Issues that deal with even the insurance. Who are those insuring these vehicles? Are they really paying out these monies? So we bring even the insurance companies, the municipal corporations in charge of the road, whether they are state or federal. You involve them when there is a crash. Sue them. Individuals have a right to sue. Right, it's not just the police or road safety that can enforce. There are private forms of enforcement. And that's one area of legal practice I think other lawyers should take a look at. In fact, some people can even start and specializing on road crashes alone. And I'm sure that will even help in changing the road safety culture in Nigeria.
Mr. Ogogo, these are pertinent issues that Barrister Mani has brought to the fore. These tragedies keep recurring. There are a lot of losses. Massive human lives, many human lives are lost. The properties are lost. Let's take the recent one in Lagos, the Otedola Bridge tragedy. Many people died. Cars were burnt, properties were destroyed. Even for NATO, the truck, the trailer involved was destroyed. The products inside were wasted. So many wastes and so many lives lost. And one begins to wonder, don't we learn from these incidents? Don't we want to prevent such things?
Yeah, you see, like I said, most of these accidents are traced to systemic failures. Right? The 3 tiers of government, the federal, the state, the local government. The federal, in the state, in a way that they are supposed to provide good roads. Right? The state government, most of these roads that are possible have been turned to shops. They allocate them for shops. And local governments that are supposed to provide, is a statutory law for local government to provide parking lots so that these trucks don't park on the road. Then the judiciary that is supposed to be prosecuting, the legislature that is supposed to legislate good laws. Like I said, there has to be enforcement. There has to be some level of prosecution. We won't be responsible for prosecution. But we try the best we can by trying, you see, if you go to any tank farm, road safety is there. VIOs are there. The safety officers of the tank farms are also there. There is what we call pre- and post-loading inspection. Right? So these trucks are not allowed to load until when these issues have been taken care of. You see, there has to be some level of synergy. The transport and logistic people, I'm the executive secretary of NATO. There has to be some level of synergy between we and them. We don't come and begin to talk on TV. We need to, get ourselves together, synergize.
It helps.
It helps. I'm saying, yeah, it helps. I agree with you. I agree with you. But there has to be some level of synergy, right? And those synergies have to. Lagos State government recertification. We should be mindful of the fact that 80% of the tankers, the petroleum distribution in this country, is done by the tankers, right? And in the course of recertification, if not well planned, if there's no synergy with the critical stakeholders, where will it be done? How will it be done? What number of trucks do you take at a time for certification?
Yeah, those are issues.
If you don't do that, scarcity sets in.
Yeah, Mr. Agbogo, those are the issues that the stakeholders would need to further deal with in your continuing meetings and so on and so forth to synergize, so that, I mean, as Dr. Salam was saying in Lagos, it doesn't then become a pretext for saying we are going on strike and they have impounded our trucks. We have heard that in the past.
I'm not saying that. I'm only soliciting for synergy.
Fantastic. That's noted. Yes. One point, gentlemen, that's the most that we can take. You can see we're already pressed for time. Malam Ibrahim Jibril in Lagos raised a number of points which have also been dealt with by the other guests who have also raised their point. But just for one point about in terms of enforcement, Jibril was talking about saying, hey, listen, you have all these burnt-out vehicles that are on the roadside and they are not cleared, and they constitute obstruction. You know, it's a common incident in Nigeria that vehicles run into part of the road furniture, highway furniture, street lights, and so on and so forth. And they are supposed ordinarily to fix the street lights that they pull down in the course of an accident. Are prosecuted for that particular incident, but that doesn't happen here. Sometimes you find even the law enforcement officers helping them to push their vehicles away from where they have crashed into an electric pole. Gentlemen, that's the most that we can take. We'd like to appreciate you. We do hope that our roads will become much safer and that there will be indeed much safer haulage of petroleum products in the country. From Lagos, we'd like to thank the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Transportation, Dr. David Olufemi Salam. Thanks a lot for being with us on the program. Also, the President of Transat Institute of Logistics and Transportation, that is Malam Ibrahim Jibril. Thanks a lot for being with us on Good Morning Nigeria today. And here in Abuja studios, we'd like to thank Mani Ochugboju. It's a barrister, it's a lawyer, and also a transport consultant. And Aloga Ignatius Obogo, Executive Secretary of NATO. That's the Association of Road Transport Owners. Gentlemen, thanks a lot for being with us on Good Morning Nigeria. Let's go over now to sports. France has already secured